I'm going to teach you how to write a book outline for a full-length 60,000 word novel in under 5 minutes. So let's jump in. Now, if you don't know, we're Scribble, a writing tool that helps writers create more compelling books, and we're a bit obsessed about story outlines. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to write a book outline, and by the end of this tutorial, you should have your own personalized version of an outline that looks something like this. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to Scribble, and we're going to log in. Now, once you're logged in, what you need to do is you want to create a new book. So click on this button here and give your book a name. Set your type, for example, to novel. You can just keep your draft to first draft and keep your word count to 60,000. Now, this word count is important, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Now, lastly, I'll add a summary and a book cover here. Okay, so with our book added, we can then click on our book and go over to our main writing pad here. Now, from here, we normally add our chapters. Now, the way it normally works is that when you add a chapter, you give your chapter a title and all other relevant information here. One helpful feature of Scribble is that when I select on Act for this book here, over on the right-hand side, you'll see all of these different chapter suggestions. And this is really helpful when you need guidance with your story structure. But sometimes you want even more help than this. You want something more than suggestions. You want to be able to see at a top level your entire story right now and then kind of start filling in the blanks from there. Now, many writers don't want to start writing full chapters until they know not only what the next chapter will be, but also what the last chapter will be. Writers who are strict plotters want to have everything laid out, so at a minimum, they know the general structure of their story before they start coloring in the details. So in order to do that, rather than setting this up one chapter at a time, we can use a story structure template, which is specific enough to get you started and help you create that top level structure, but general enough that you won't feel restricted by it. Now, in order to use a template, you first need to make sure that you have no chapters added to your book yet. If you have chapters added, you won't be able to use Scribble's template feature. So start by making sure that your chapter list here is empty. If it's not, and I click on Add Chapter, I'll see no option to add a chapter template or to work with the chapter template. But if I delete this chapter and then I click on Add Chapter, I'll see this button here that asks me if I want to use a template. So now I'll click on that button and I'll be brought to a pop-up which prompts me to confirm that I want to use a template. So here I'll select that I want to use this 24 chapter template, and then I'll click on this button. And that's it. Now notice that I have 24 chapters added to my story, which give me a basic structure which I can use as a jumping off point for the creation of my entire book. Now, I mentioned previously that this template is specific enough to give you guidance, but general enough to give you space to be creative. So if you want to see this in action, I actually broke down a critically acclaimed short story called The Overcoat by Nikolai Gogol. So if you're looking for an example to see how flexible a template like this can be, I'm going to link to that video tutorial below. But you can do that after this tutorial is over. For now, let's keep on track. So now what I want you to do is to head over to your plot visualization page. Here, you'll now see all of your chapter writing prompts. Here, for example, you can see that in our first plot card here, we have our setup, or the kind of establishment of our ordinary world. Now, this is the world that exists before the inciting incident happens, the world before everything gets turned upside down. So here we're prompted to introduce our protagonist, introduce our readers to their flaws, and just generally orient our readers into a time and a place. So this is our setup. As you can see, it's general enough to give you space to play, but specific enough to give you some guidance. Now let's jump over to our writing pad. Previously, when we set up this book, I mentioned that it was important that our book had 60,000 words. And that's because with this template, each chapter has 2,500 words, and the template has 24 chapters. Now, 2,500 times 24 equals 60,000. So now, when you're over on the writing pad and you start to write, all of the progress bars will be accurate. Here, over in the right sidebar, we'll be benchmarking this chapter to be 2,500 words. So I'll see my chapter progress as I write here. And in the top bar, I'll see my overall book progress towards my 60,000 word goal. Now, of course, I could always change my chapter word count by clicking on this edit icon here and making adjustments to this chapter. But as you can see, this gives you a pretty good start for story structure. Now, once you're done in your first chapter, you can simply jump back over to the story visualization page here to see what's on deck. Now, in the second chapter, we have the first hints at something brewing under the surface of our ordinary world. Again, if you want to see a creative use of this chapter template in action, I'll show you how this unravels in the short story, The Overcoat. Again, I like that book as an example because it's quite an imaginative use of this structure. So this book outlining tool was designed to allow you to plot your story as quickly as possible. Pre-plotting your story like this can really help you avoid those days when you stare at your screen without knowing what to write. Now, at a minimum, having your plot laid out like this will ensure that you always know what you're supposed to be doing next, or at least it gives you an idea so you can always keep your momentum moving forward. So that's all I have for you today, and I hope you find this book outlining tool, which again is linked to in the description below, helpful. So thanks for stopping by today, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get more writing tips.